Welcome to the golf edition of Hooked on Sport. This is South Australia's summer golf wrap, where we uncover the stories, personalities and moments that define golf across South Australia and beyond. It's time to talk golf with sports commentator Ben Hook and state golf representative Sophie Hilditch.
Good on you, Wallace. Thanks very much. Yeah, what a massive week it is going to be in golf. The Masters is ahead of us. The resumption of pennant golf is ahead of us. To break it all down, the expertise and insight of Sophie Hilditch. Soph, hello. I had an epiphany today that I'd love to share with you, but how are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm very good, actually. I'm still getting off the high of Anwar, if I'm being honest. And to be fair, also getting over having not been to sleep until about 1:30 a.m., which was actually feeling like 2:30 a.m. on that Saturday night.
I had an epiphany today, Soph, and I want to tell you all about it. It's always bugged me for the last 8-9 months since we've been doing this podcast together, why it is that you are so eternally pleasant. You never find fault in anyone. You're always agreeable. You're easy to deal with. You're never angry. You're never sniping at someone for no good reason. And I worked out why that is. Because Wallace Long, our producer, asked for the handle of your Twitter or X account today, and you replied that you don't have one. And that explains it to me. You haven't been dragged down by all the bots and all the nastiness and all the snideness and all the pure filth that resides in X. You've been able to rise above it and avoid it, and here you are to this very day, this still pleasant human being, not worn down by the bots and everyone else who's just raging with anger on X, which is a place where I live for much of my journalistic life, if you like. So congratulations on avoiding the 50 feet of crap that is Twitter.
Well, does this explain why you're a grumpy old bastard then, Ben?
Exactly what it explains. And I've got to be honest with you, Soph, I have been on the end of one or two of the all-time great Twitter pile-ons, and they're very funny when they're not aimed at you, but when they are aimed at you, they are really, really nasty. And I'll tell you one story, actually. I was on the receiving end of a Twitter pile-on. It was between Christmas and New Year, and I'd done a bit of a year in review, and the one thing that I was doing at the time was I was probably a bit ahead of my game. We're talking about 14, 15 years ago now. I was pretty ahead of my game with bringing women's sport into the mainstream. And so I did this double-page spread feature on who had been the biggest achievers in women's sport for that year. Now, this is before AFLW. It was before the Matildas were particularly big. And I had a bit of a qualification that I was going to write about 15 different female athletes, and they either had to be top-end South Australians or world champions. Now, this was a year that not much had been happening in soccer, but I left out, and it sounds a bit weird now, but you need to go back 13, 14 years. I left out Sam Kerr. Now, Sam Kerr was a bit of a rising star at the time, but the Matildas weren't exactly on the mainstream page, and she didn't fit my qualification of either being a South Australian legend or a world champion. Well, it was actually Simon Hill, the soccer commentator, who started this absolute Twitter pile-on. And for the next 48 hours, I could not open my account without there being death threats and all sorts of accusations about it. I was just laughing about it. I didn't know any of these people, but it was, yeah, that was 2 days of my life that I thought, wow, this is a pretty scary place to live. So, yeah, I just want to commend you once again on avoiding the pitfalls of what is one of the worst drudges of social media. I'm still there, Soph, and I don't know why sometimes. I post a lot less, if I'm honest, but it's still a great way to sort of understand what's going on in quick fashion around the world. But my God, yeah, that was a tough time. Let's move on to all of the negativity around X, and let's start talking about the positivity of Sophie Hilditch. Who was Sophie's star for this week?
This was absolutely a no-brainer, and I feel like I'm not even going to have to explain myself here, but I've obviously gone teammate, friend of the pod, friend of mine, Reagan Denton, with a T4 finish at Anwar, and our listeners can go back and listen to our latest podcast where we speak to her and her best friend Zoe Manton that watched her that whole time, but I couldn't move past Reagan. I tried, I really did, Ben. I looked everywhere else and I thought, no, you know what? It's Reagan Denton 100%, 110%. And I don't even feel like I need to explain myself. If the listeners want to know why, they can go back and listen to our podcast all about Anwar, but more importantly, all about Reagan Denton.
It's beautiful on two fronts. One is it's a great story, and the other is some beautiful engagement farming there. Just trying to drag people back into a previous podcast. Let's get another download, more reach. Wallace Long, he's come off camera here, but I know he's listening in. He's going to be so proud of you and the way you're just trying to continue to build our audience with every piece of editorial. It's very, very smart stuff. It's an excellent Sophie star for the week. Absolutely appropriate. I'm going to think outside the box here, Soph. I'm going to talk about Olafemi Komalafi. He has just won the Stall gift. I can see the look on your face as if to say, I'm not exactly sure where Hooky's going here. He's the second straight South Australian to win the Stall gift, which is an incredible story. Last year, it was John Evans. Olafemi Komalafe has won it this year, has African heritage, but absolutely one of us. Coached by Paul Young, really interesting guy in his own right. Won the Stall gift himself back in 1985, so the 40-year anniversary last year when John Evans won it. And he's gone back to back as a coach this year with Komalafi. Komalafi has been around for a while. He's had this incredible breakout year in 2024, won the Loxton gift, the Barossa gift, and the Marion gift. Now, these are races that are nowhere near the status of the Stall gift. But in an event where they had two of the biggest name Americans racing, for Komalafi to win it and for Paul Young to be the coach of the winner 2 years straight in what is by far and away the biggest pro running foot race in Australia, it's an incredible achievement. So I could not go past him as my best bet, my Ben's best for this week.
Very fair, Ben. To be honest, I've been distracted by all the golf that's been going on, so I have zero comments for you, but he sounds like a great Ben's best, and that's all I've got.
And I am stunned. As soon as I saw you sort of raise an eyebrow, I thought, oh, here comes another yellow card. But I've managed to survive yet again. I reckon I've gone about 12 weeks now without a yellow card. There's one brewing, I am sure. Let's head around the globe with Sophie, one of my favourite parts of every week when we get to the beginning of a new week and just break down what's happened over the past 48 to 72 hours. Let's begin with the Valero Texas Open, Soph, won by JJ Spawn.
Yeah, I'm so excited to see JJ Spawn get up and get a win. This tournament was particularly interesting, Ben, because Saturday was met with some horrible, horrible weather. And it meant that for a lot of the field, they actually had to finish their Saturday round in the morning of the Sunday and then go on to play their final round on the Sunday. And Bob McIntyre, who's ended up finishing second and actually had the lead after 36 holes as well as 54 holes, said it was incredibly difficult because on that Saturday morning, the pins were all set for what they expected the Saturday weather to be, and the wind was completely different. And a lot of the pins he struggled to go for or struggled to play because he was saying the wind was so different on the Sunday to what it had been to the Saturday. And he strongly believed that, you know what, if that had been the wind, those pins wouldn't have been there. But it's an interesting tournament, this one. I always find it interesting because it doesn't have the strongest field. A lot of people end up who are playing in the Masters go straight to Augusta. And, you know, for the people who've won the Masters before, they get to play on the Sunday and play with family and friends. And a lot of people go early to start practicing on the grounds. And in fact, the players who played Anwar said it was interesting because the men started rolling in on the Saturday afternoon. And, for example, Reagan Denton got to meet a childhood hero of Jason Day and myriad of others. But for some people, this event is really important because if they're not quite in form and they're trying to chase something, they play this event for some competitive practice. And I think JJ Spawn, Bob McIntyre and Ludford Aberg, which were all up there, are players to watch out coming into the Masters because they were playing incredible.
Don't go too hard too early, Soph. I'm very keen on getting your Masters tips a little bit later on. Before we get to all of that, take us through what happened in the LPGA. They played the Aramco Championship. It was won by Lauren Coughlin. She shot 2 over on the back nine, yet still won by 5 from Ireland's Leona Maguire and, well, of course, American superstar Nelly Corder. Incredible win for Lauren Coughlin, her first victory since she won the Scottish Open back in 2024. So that's almost 600 days ago now. Massive performance from the 33-year-old who has been around for a long time, but really starting to hit her straps.
Yeah, Lauren Coughlin is a really interesting story. She started out on the Epsom Tour and was actually struggling to make a living from golf. There's stories of her only having $10 in her bank account and really living paycheck to paycheck. She was pretty close to quitting. And her husband in early 2024 actually ended up jumping on the bag and becoming her full-time caddy to even try and cut costs. And he quit his full-time job. And we're here now, and she's won a massive purse at this event at Shadow Creek. It's a course that was playing so incredibly difficult. A lot of the commentators said it was harder than what a lot of the women's majors are set up. It was firm. It was fast. The undulation around the greens and the fairways were absolutely severe and tricky based on that firmness. And Lauren Coughlin just played it perfectly. She's a fairly big hitter, but even her, having wedges and 9-irons in her hands, was saying, I couldn't go at pins because the greens were way too firm. And I was having to aim 30 feet left or 30 feet right of the pin, or in sometimes cases thinking, I can't hold the green with this club. I'm going to have to actually aim to miss a green in the right position to give myself the easier up and down. But do you know what I found interesting, Ben? Who she had on her bag? Who was her caddy this week? Did you know who it was?
So, good question. My recollection is she had Terry McNamara on her bag for a period of time, who was Annika Sorensen's old caddy. I feel like that changed in the last few weeks. You're probably across that. Tell me more.
Yeah, so she's only had Jack Fulgham on her bag for the past 3 weeks. He's a previous caddy of Lexi Thompson. He's also caddied in Solheim Cups. Excitingly, he's run caddy medals. He's that impressive. And also during his college at US, he was an Augusta national caddy and has caddied multiple rounds over there for various visitors and members. And apparently Lauren said the whole time they were just talking about the Masters tournament and how excited she was for about to begin. But I find this interesting, Hooky, because in 2024, she actually had her husband, John Pond, on the bag. And I always find if you can have your partner, your long-term partner on the bag, you must have a very, very strong relationship. But they were trying to work out what was going to be his cut, because obviously anything she earns goes into her bank account, which is also his bank account. And he obviously said, well, that's not enough for me. So last time when she came second at the Chevron Championship, she had to buy him a fishing boat. And that was his compensation for carrying the bag for the entire tournament.
Gee, I tell you what, I'm lucky to get a bottle of mineral water and a sandwich from the pro shop after caddying for my significant other. So a fishing trip, I tell you what, I might, not a fishing trip, an actual fishing, your own boat. Yeah. Tell you what. So Sarah's, I know she's only playing in the A3s and you share part of the caddying role. Maybe between the two of us, we can get our own boat. So what do you reckon?
Yeah, that would be nice. I'd take just a tinny or a rubber thing. I don't need anything massive or anything important, but I do like fishing, so I'd definitely take a little tinny out there if Sarah's listening back at home. But do you know what I found interesting about this LPGA event? Was Nelly Korda. It's her third runners-up 3 weeks in a row, which is so impressive. Her sister, Jess Korda, who had a baby about 3 years ago, is back playing on the LPGA, and they spoke about at the beginning of the week how important it was to them to be back travelling. And Jess said it was quite difficult coming back to the LPGA because all the players that she was used to were no longer around and there were a lot of new faces. And I'm thinking maybe the familiarity of having Jess back on board and Nelly being able to live with her sister and do practice rounds with her sister as someone who's a bit more of a lone wolf and often has practice rounds by herself. But Nelly is someone to watch out for as the major championships for the women are around the corner. But what is concerning me, and I mentioned it last week, is again her short putting. It's just incredible. It's like Scotty Scheffler before the mallet, and it's so worrying. In fact, I got even more worried because the coverage, once she missed about a 2-footer about halfway through the round, started just an absolute stream of missed putts of Nelly Korda throughout the past few weeks. And you just think, gosh, if she could just start getting her putting on point and maybe make that switch from the blade to the mallet, she could be the Scotty Scheffler of the LPGA.
Hey, you referenced it before. 7 under was the winning score, 1 by 5. Only 4 players under par in this event. Course set up very, very difficult. What did you make of that? Are you comfortable with the fact that we're seeing 17, 18, 20, 25 under in a lot of men's professional events, and the women's event, well, yeah, it was set up tough.
It was really set up tough, Ben, but most of the LPGA events are set up similar to the men in terms of it's an absolute birdie fest. And we're coming off a stream of weeks where, you know, we've got Gino Titicum just shooting 24 under, 25 under, incredibly soft greens. They can attack pins with 6 irons. And Ben, if I'm honest, I like seeing this punishment. I like seeing more creativity around the greens. And Nelly said it at the end of her final round is, quite frankly, she didn't play well enough. She wasn't hitting her numbers, and therefore she was putting herself in difficult positions and spots where she couldn't make up and down. But it was her ball striking, and it just wasn't her control of her ball, whilst Lauren Coughlin was completely the opposite. So I'd personally much prefer to watch this style of golf. I'd much prefer to watch people go, I can't attack this pin, but how's the best way to approach it? Can I use that slope coming right to left? If I land it halfway up the hill, will it roll back? I prefer that. I prefer creativity, and I prefer seeing them have to really think their way around a golf course rather than hit the ball on the fairway, put a wedge to 2 feet and held apart. I find that ultimately a little bit boring, and I'd prefer to see firmer greens any day of the week.
So very quickly, let's just around Australia, Travis Smythe, around Australia, I beg your pardon, around the rest of golf in the world, but it does relate to Australia because Travis Smythe has taken out the International Series event that was played in Japan. Massive result for him. He was number 1 on the Australasian Tour order of merit, and this propels him straight to the top of the International Series rankings. Top of the International Series rankings, gets a live contract the following year. So he is in and amongst that. He's playing really well at the moment, Travis, so that is particularly exciting. We will watch as that series continues on with a lot of interest, in particular with where he is at. And then, of course, the Australasian Tour qualifying was last week. Not all good news for the South Australians. Joe Hodgson was at 1 over and missed. Frank Vukic, so both the Kuyonga boys, if you like, he was at 8 over and missed. Jack Carter keeps his card, so he had to go back and re-qualify, and he claimed kept his card, which is excellent for Jack Carter. Hayden Hopewell was the winner, played exceptionally well. He already had a card and keeps his card as well. 26 guys claimed or reclaimed their card, so congratulations to Hayden Hopewell and to our own Jack Carter. So, I need a little drum roll now because this is my most exciting part of the day. We are going to talk about the Masters. Let's just focus in on the Australians first up. 4 Australians in the event: Jason Day, Adam Scott, Min Woo Lee, and of course Cameron Smith. So what I'd like you to do for me is just your own thoughts on perhaps why each of these guys can win, but what their greatest hurdle is that they're going to have to overcome if they're going to be wearing the green jacket next Sunday at twilight. Let's start with Jason Day. He's making his 15th start, remains one of the best players to set foot at Augusta without a win. 5 top 10s, including a runner-up on debut. He's 38 now, so his power edge has perhaps faded a little bit, but still an awesome player in and around the greens. Was top 10 last year, which got him back in this year, but his chances seem to be running out. Where do you see Jason Day at the 2026 Masters?
I know you've wanted me to start off the bat with Jason Day, but the one thing I will say about Australians at the Masters is I'm surprised we've only ever had one winner. I think Augusta really suits Australians. It's fast, it's firm, it's not necessarily for the longest hitter. It's for people who can shot shape, it's for people who can have incredible short game, and we just need to look at the Melbourne Sandbelt and know that any sort of amateur golfer, when they're learning to play golf and playing in those amateur events, which is predominantly often played in Victoria, needs to have an incredible short game. And all 4 of these players have incredible short games. And so I'm just shocked that the only winner has ever come from Adam Scott in 2013. But anyways, you've asked me about Jason Day, and I will get there. You've done a great rundown, but it's interesting. Jason Day's had a interesting start to the season. I want to say it's been a good start, but it has had a flurry of missed cuts within that. But his short game is looking good. His driver is looking good. It's been his irons which have been a bit dubious. And around Augusta, your irons and your ball striking and picking your numbers needs to be on point. He's come to the media recently. He said he's been going through some equipment changes and he's gone back to his original irons. He's gone from hitting a draw to now hitting a fade, which is favourable for approach shots around Augusta, though you do need to know how to shape it both ways. I think he's feeling like he's going to be pretty good, but I'm a little bit worried about Jason Day. I'm not quite happy where his iron play is currently, and I think that's going to be his biggest hurdle. The other thing I'm going to say is there has been so much press on Jason Day and his outfit wear with Melbourne Golf. I don't know if you've had a chance to have a look at it. Have you, Hooky?
Look, I haven't seen it this year, and I was just going to finish off all of your really intelligent and insightful rap by saying that I hope the biggest headline that Jason Day makes this year is not what he ends up wearing. So obviously you've got a bit more insight in the dress code for 2026 as well. He got told off last year. Got told to take a jumper off.
He's already got told off again because they've released what he was about to wear, and Augusta National has come back and he was going to wear this shirt with birds all over it and matching pants. And they've said, no, you've got to wear solid coloured pants. The whole outfit cannot come. And then Tuesday practice round, he's got this vest that looks like a bird watcher. It's just insane. So I think for me, I'm like, Jason Day, can we just start wearing some stuff which suits Augusta National, and let's pull the focus away from your outfit and start actually focusing on the golf. But Hooky, maybe it's working in his favour. Maybe it's like Tin Cup. The sillier I look, the more focus it is on how silly I look, and I'll feel okay, and I can actually hit the ball properly with all this outside noise somewhere else, and I will just deal with my own self looking a bit silly already, so it doesn't matter if I look a bit silly, and I can just take away that pressure.
There's logic in there somewhere, Soph. Adam Scott, the 2013 champion, playing his 25th Masters, can you believe? His pedigree at this event is unsurpassed, but his recent form suggests there's a bit of a decline. Only one sub-70 round in his past 6 starts. So that goes all the way back to 2019. Feels unlikely that he's going to contend once again, but you can never rule out a past winner, can you?
You can never rule out a past winner, and it's a big milestone for him. 25 years of playing at Augusta. He's said it. He's not been completely happy with his putter leading up to this tournament. He's thinking that I can only string 3 out of 4 rounds with the putter. But then in his next breath, he says, but I know these Augusta greens like the back of my hands. He's had Stevie Williams, Tiger Woods' old caddy, on the bag, and it's who got him over the line in the 2013 Masters. He actually read the putt and told Adam Scott to change his line, which is the winning putt on that playoff hole that he ends up holing. So, look, Adam Scott, he's been knocking on the door of a lot of majors since that win in 2013, but he hasn't had his best stuff at Augusta. But like you said, I can't rule him out. A past winner, someone of 25 years of experience, his ball striking is always unbelievable, but for me, it just feels like the putter is not in a good place at the moment.
Let's move on to Min Woo Lee. The least excited I am of all the Australians. His scoring average at Augusta is 73.3. His lower score is 69. I just don't feel like he's precise enough, in particular on this course and against this quality of player. So he's a no for me. What I will say is that his ball striking does seem to have improved in the last 6 to 12 months. And I do feel like, top 20 would be reasonable for Min Woo Lee with where I think he's at the moment.
The chef, you got to let him cook though, Hooky.
Dr. Chipinski, as he likes to call himself. He might be chipping in for a few bogeys the way he's been playing, the way he tends to play at this place.
Well, no, look, Hooky, he is the highest ranked Australian, though, coming into this event. And it's not the first time that he's been the highest ranked Australian coming into this event. It's only his 4th appearance. So he has the most limited experience at Augusta National. 5th appearance, I should say. My thing with Min Woo Lee is the strength of his game is often his length off the tee. And I've seen it in person at the Australian Open. The ball speed that this guy gets is incredible. It's insane. But the thing about Augusta National is length is not necessary. We see a lot and a lot of people older than 40, older than 50 making the cut at Augusta National just by, one, they can often hit driver because they can get it to the corner of driver, whilst a lot of these players, like the Rory McIlroys, actually get driver taken out of their hands and they don't need it. It's a course that you can't actually bully because the greens are so difficult and ball placement is so important. So for me, it takes Minwoo Lee's, the best bit about his game and his weapon, it takes it completely out of his hands, and I don't think he's as prominent at the Augusta. The one thing I will say is Minwoo Lee has acknowledged this, and he's brought in a mini driver and has said, I normally hit a fade with my driver, and he felt very uncomfortable on a lot of the holes where he couldn't hit his high draw because it was too long, where he had to hit that fade. But now he has that mini driver, and he's much more comfortable in hitting a draw, which is the preferred shot shape at Augusta off the tee.
Yep.
And I have to say, Ben, I'm liking his odds a little bit better. I'm liking his preparation. He has worked on his accuracy over the last 6 to 9 months with his irons. He's been working on his putter. He's acknowledged his weaknesses around Augusta. He's taken control of his game. Look, I agree with you. He's not my favourite to win, but I'm more edging towards a top 15 finish for Minwoo Lee. I'm liking his preparation coming into this, and I'm also feeling his arrogance that I've seen coming in the past few Masters. He's really been humbled by this event, and I think he's realised, hang on a second, if I want to compete at Augusta, I have to rein myself in.
Nice. Good wrap. But yes, I think we're both identifying the same things, and I think your point is well made that he's improving those and it keeps him in the money. I'm just of the opinion that he's just not ready yet. I think he's a major winner at some point, but I just don't believe he can sustain the level that he wants to play at for long enough. I just think he's too prone to too many mistakes, and I suspect that's what might cruel his chances again this time around, which brings us to Cameron Smith making his 10th appearance at the Masters. He's had top 10 performances in 5 of the past 8 tournaments. And I really like him here. This is the last year of his exemption, Soph. So he's either got to finish inside the top 12 here or somehow conjure a way to get inside the world top 50. Otherwise, he won't be at the Masters next year. So needs a good form. Scoring average is 71, made 8 of 9 cuts in his previous 9 events. The only cut he missed was last year. But for me, age profile is a tick. His form, not ideal, but it's tickish. He hasn't been completely terrible so far this year. And his game at the Masters is a big tick. So he's the best bet of the Australians for me.
We're on the same page. He is also my favourite. He has actually done a practice round with Adam Scott, which I think is excellent preparation coming into this. Being able to pick Adam's brain as the man who's played the most Masters out of the Australian boys and knows those greens inside out. Cameron Smith, he has performed well at Augusta before, but it's really been his driver that has let him down. We all know that Cam Smith can be very squirrely with that driver, and his miss is big. So that is the thing that I'm going to have to see from Cam Smith to be improved, his position off the tee. But he's a short game wizard. And watching him at Royal Melbourne for the Australian Open, where he came runners-up and unfortunately missed a relatively short putt to get the win, I was just so impressed. And I just think this course really suits someone like Cameron Smith. Like you said, he's running out of exemption, so he's going to have a little bit of fire in his belly. He's playing way better than he did in 2025. It was a real letdown in 2025. The start of the season, yes, it has not been ideal, but I always find it really hard with Live Golf to really know where these guys are at. It's really difficult. I don't think Cam Smith really has his heart and soul in everything when it comes to Live, particularly with individual play. He seems like he's more interested in the Ripper team score, which I don't hate, to be honest. I think that's fine. But what I will say is I think Cam Smith wants a Masters. I think he wants to be the second Australian to ever have that green jacket over his shoulders. And his short game is just so incredible, Ben. I just think he can get himself out of trouble at Augusta. He can hold those 10-footers. And Cam Smith, for me, I think he's the person out of those 4 Australians to get the job done in 2026.
I'm going to give you a couple of numbers here that I think are a very good indicator of what sort of a player you need to be successful at Augusta. And I'm going to go through the last 10 years, okay? 10 of the last 10 winners were top 25 in the world rankings. 8 of the last 10 were top 15. 6 of the last 10 were top 10. Now, I'm just got a little asterisk there. One of them is John Rahm, who is obviously well out of the rankings at the moment, but that's not his fault that he's on live and live weren't up until this year getting any rankings. So
Well, it's a bit his fault, Hooky. He went to live.
When there was no rankings. But statistically, you need to be an elite player if you're going to win a modern Masters. Age. 9 of the last 10 were aged between 27 and 36 years of age. The only one outside of that was a bit younger was Scotty Scheffler. You need to have experience around this place. 0 of the last 10 winners were debutantes. 9 of the last 10 had at least 3 Masters starts. Willett had only had 2. And 7 of the last 10 have had 5+ Augusta starts. You've got to be in form. 10 of the last 10 winners made the cut in their last start. 9 of 10 had a top 10 in one of their last 3 starts. And 9 of 10 had multiple top 10s entering Augusta. So if you're coming in cold, forget it. You're not going to win. It hasn't happened in the last decade. Past success at Augusta, really important. 9 of the 10 winners made the cut the year before. 8 of the 10 had a prior top 10 cut, so that probably rules out Cameron Smith if you think about it. 0 of the last 10, though, were defending champions. So your mate Rory, I'm probably ruling out this time around. There's only 3 back-to-backs in history. We were talking about that last week, weren't we? We're talking about that later in the episode, of course. We will get to that. Recent winning experience, 8 of 10 winners had already had a win in that season. 10 were top 30 strokes gained tee to green. 10 out of 10 had played at least once in the USA that year. That rules out every live player. And that's how we end up with basically Tommy Fleetwood, Matt Fitzpatrick, and there's probably 1 or 2 others around the place that I think can win. So Matt Fitzpatrick, after all that, is going to be my pick for the Masters this year. Soph, what's your top 3 picks and your roughie?
Well, Hooky, I didn't know all those stats. So I'm pretty
you do now.
impressed. No, but I'm pretty impressed with my top 3 picks because I've picked these before this episode have even started. And
Awesome.
my top pick is Matt Fitzpatrick because of how well he's been playing in 2026.
You and I both.
He's runners up from the players. He's made 10 out of 11 cuts at Augusta. He's a grinder. Have you seen his yardage books? He writes down every single number absolutely imaginable, and he keeps putting them in all the books coming back to back to back. So I hate to think what Matt Fitzpatrick's wealth of knowledge around Augusta actually is, because he is absolutely particular when it comes to preparing for tournaments, keeping top of his stats. He's gained distance off the tee, which I know I said it's not a course that you can bully, but if you're hitting irons off the tee instead of driver, we know that that makes your dispersion a lot smaller and you can hit those points that you want to hit. His putting has really improved. So for me, Matt Fitzpatrick, he's my top tip. If I was a gambler, it's who I'd be putting money on. My number 2, which is a bit rogue, is Bryson DeChambeau. He had a bit of a shonky, finish to 2025. And yes, I've been watching the documentary all on Rory McIlroy, which is currently on Prime. And, hearing the fact that Bryson and Rory weren't chatting and there was a bit of match play going on. And he obviously had a poor finish. But Bryson DeChambeau, it's kind of what I was talking about Minwoo Lee. Driver gets taken out of Bryson's hands. And, there was all those famous comments back in the day about how he said he could have that many birdies at Augusta and he was completely humbled. And I just think Bryson is one of those live players that since joining the live tour, his golf has noticeably improved. His character has also, well, I can't say his character's improved, but his media persona and people enjoying watching him play has definitely improved, and he uses that to his advantage. You could even see it at the Masters in 2025. A lot of the patrons were on side for Bryson, and he was trying to get the crowd cheering for him and getting more up and about, and he really used that as fuel to send himself off. So Bryson DeChambeau is my number 2. And you're going to
Nice.
hate me for this. I have to go my boy Rory McIlroy. I love it. And I know...
I don't hate you for it. I get
I know
it. He's
the
going to
odds...
be...
Look, I know the odds aren't in his favour, but I'm liking his prep. His monkey is officially off his back. Listening to him speak on that Prime documentary was just really engaging and interesting in terms of him talking about his 2011 loss and how much that had actually impacted him in that back nine. And he really lost that tournament and he just absolutely went to crap. And he then spoke about even in the weeks and years after that, how much that actually impacted him. And every time he went to play Augusta, he couldn't shake that memory away. And he himself didn't realize how much it had impacted him. 2025 was some of the most emotional I've ever got watching golf. I thought it was incredible. Watching Justin Rose and how humble he was when Rory won, but really seeing how much it meant to Rory just showed what he'd been holding on to, and he's not holding on to that anymore. He's completed the Grand Slam. This would just be another thing that he could add to the list. And seeing how different his prep is, you know, he now got an invite to be able to invite his dad on the Sunday to go and play a practice round, and he's joking with Tommy Fleetwood on the driving range and looking at what kind of clothing he's wearing. He just looks like a different person. And I think that for me really gives me the confidence that there's a chance, Ben, that he might be able to go back to back.
Yeah, just become the 4th in history. Have you got a roughie for me?
Well, roughie now doesn't feel like much of a roughie based on what you were saying. I was going to go Tommy Fleetwood, but it now doesn't feel much of a roughie. But to be fair, I still think I can pick him as a roughie. He hasn't won a major. His first PGA win only come about in the past few months. So I think Tommy Fleetwood, he's always around the mark. But do you know what I'm going to say? I'm going to say Frankie Fleetwood can get his ball over on the par 3 course over the water because he's been trying his hardest and he's been trying his best.
Beautiful little story, yes.
Tommy Fleetwood will win the Masters, and that's my prediction. So it's all based on Frankie, what Frankie can do in the par 3 contest. But Tommy Fleetwood, I think he's my shout. I really want Tommy Fleetwood to get a major. He's been playing incredible golf. He is a little bit older, but his ball striking is unbelievable and his putting is always extremely solid. He's coming into the Masters in good form. And for me, Tommy Fleetwood is my roughie, but he doesn't feel so roughy anymore after you just picked him as one of your top picks.
Yeah, so my top 3, Xander Schauffele can move the ball right to left, important around Augusta. Matt Fitzpatrick, as I said, Tommy Fleetwood. My roughie is Bob McIntyre, Soph.
That's a good one.
Left-hander. Now, I know I'm a left-hander, so I'm probably a little bit biased, but left-handers got an incredible record in the modern era around Augusta. Bubba Watson twice, Phil Mickelson 3 times, and Mike Weir, of course, the other left-hander who's won it. And all of these have happened in the last 30 years, and that's well above the average of the amount of left-handers that actually play. So that is my top 3, Xander Schauffele, Tommy Fleetwood, Matt Fitzpatrick with Bob McIntyre, the lefty as my roughie. So I just wanted to run through one little concept with you very quickly because you're a very good golfer and I'm an outright hacker. And I thought I would go through each hole at Augusta National and work out the performance on each of those holes that's most relatable to dead set scrubbers like me. So I'm going to start with the first, work my way all through the 18th and give you a quick anecdote from each that relates to some of the worst golf you could possibly imagine, 20 handicap sort of stuff that I can really relate to. The first hole, Ernie Els in 2016, hit the green in regulation and then needed 6 putts to finally get it in the hole for an 8. A 6 putt, his quote afterwards, hard to putt with snakes in your head. The second hole, Rory McIlroy in 2011, one of the all-time great implosions. It all started on the second, and I can see your top lip drop. Ironically enough, because Rory's first shot, Rory's tee shot went into the bunker on the right side of the fairway. He hit the lip with his second and flubbed it out. Now, he managed to salvage par on that hole, I know, but that was like the beginning of where we could see Rory completely capitulate. He ended up shooting 80 that day. On the third, going to go to Jeff Maggott, 2003, hit his tee shot into the bunker and wait for it, Soph. Tried to hit a wedge out onto the green from there, hit it into the lip. It ricocheted back into his body. Back then, that was a 2-stroke penalty.
Oh.
He was leading at the time. He made 7 there, and that was the end of his tournament. One of my all-time favourites, Phil Mickelson in 2012, should have won a 4th jacket. He decided not to go for the green on the 4th, but to hit it in the left bunker. Well, he missed the left bunker left, hit it into the grandstand. It bounced off a railing even further left again, ended up underneath a bush, which he tried to hit right-handed, barely moved the ball, made 6 on that hole, and that was the end of his charge for a 4th Masters. On the 5th, Kerry Middlecoff, we're going a long, long way back here, but he was chasing back-to-back Masters like your boy Rory in 1956. Got onto the 5th green in regulation, need 4 putts, and it was one of 3 double bogeys he made that day, finished with a 77. On the 6th, Jose Maria Olazabal in 1991. He was leading the Masters on Saturday, and he came up short on the 6th hole, had a putt up to the green, up to the pin. She left about 5 feet short. It rolled all the way back to his feet. He did it a second time, and he finally got it up onto the right tier and made 6 in that hole. That was the end of his campaign. Charles Coody made a triple on the 7th in 1972, 4 shots in a bunker. Frank Walsh had a 12 on the 8th in 1935. One of his shots found the water, which I've had a look through all of the old and new maps of Augusta, and I cannot find where you can hit it in the water on the 8th. Apparently he ended up 100 metres onto another fairway at one point. On the 9th, we can't go past Greg Norman's approach in the final round of 1996. You cannot leave it short on approach at 9. He left it short, rolled down the hill. He started that round 6 shots up. He lost to Nick Faldo, of course. On the 10th, your boy again, Rory McIlroy. This is back again in 2011 when he hit the snap hook. About 100 yards left of that fairway, made a triple bogey. Bryce's approach on the 11th last year, he was 5 back of Rory. It was tight, but remember what he did on 13, so he could have still been in it, but Bryden hit this mad hook into the pond left of the green. He had a 9-iron. He was aiming 20 yards right and hit it 20 yards left. It was sort of outrageous stuff. There are so many bad shots on the 12th, as you well know, Soph, but I'm going to go with Fred Couples, who hit it short, as everyone does there, who then implodes, but his ball somehow stayed on the bank, very much like the Colombian girl who won ANWA this week. So I just thought it was worth referencing. He went on to win the tournament in 1992. Rory's approach to the 13th in last year definitely gets the nod. On the 14th, I go Greg Norman, 1999, hit a terrible tee shot that hit a patron and bounced back into play. He was so lucky. His second shot he hit over the back of the green. His third from off the green was 20 feet short. It was just a horrendous putt. Missed the par putt short and low, and that was also the end of his run. Sergio, I was going to run with him on the 15th, but I've gone Seve Ballesteros, who hit it in the water in 1986 when he was leading the tournament and hit this horrendous, swiped, smothered 4-iron that never looked like crossing the hazard at 15. Norman in 1996 at 16. Don't know if you can remember this one, but he got it back to a 2-stroke lead and he hit it a mile left into the water. In 17th, it was Stuart Appleby. He was leading in 2007 and made a complete mess of that. Ended up in the bunker on the 7th green, would you believe? And then to round it all out, Arnold Palmer needed par to win in 1961. He was shaking hands with people up the 18th fairway because he hit it in the middle of the fairway. Hit it in the bunker. No great drama. Get it up and down, you win. If you make 5, you're in a playoff. He hit the bunker shot over the other side of the green. He bladed his chip back to the first side of the green, 2-putted for a double bogey and lost by a stroke. That is the sort of golf that I can embrace, Soph. The Masters played horrendously by all of the greatest in the world. Sometimes they're just one of us, mate.
Sometimes they are. Hooky, it was so bad though, because I was just thinking of other different bad shots that I would have been picking on all those 18 holes, particularly that back 9. It's just so terrible. There's so many heebie-jeebies. I didn't want to say it to Reagan, but Reagan Denton mentioned that she hadn't watched the Masters. And I thought maybe that's a good tactic because you don't have all these like nightmares that are seeping in from other players. She had no idea about all these terrible golf shots. Like I think there was one where Scotty Scheffler and 18 hit it so far left off the tee that it ended up in like bushes and just, there's so many heebie-jeebies coming out from this golf course.
There are demons everywhere at Augusta National. Talking about demons, we have pre-recorded this and we're going to drop it back in now, which is a relived of the 2016 tournament. We thought it was pertinent because it's the 10-year anniversary of it. We thought it was also appropriate because of what happened to Jordan Spieth and how that just related so closely to the events that befell Asterisk Tally at Anwar last week, where she made a terrible hash of the 12th hole, making seven, identical score to Jordan Spieth when he ejected himself from the Masters in 2016, which Danny Willett went on to win. Take a look at our conversation now, Sophie and me, talking about 2016, the Masters relived.
All right, Soph. Well, considering the fate that befell Asterisk Tally a little bit earlier today, and the fact that we are 10 years on from one of the most remarkable back nines in the history of the Masters, I want to go back to 2016. It should have been one of the most boring wire-to-wire wins the event had ever seen, and instead it turned into complete Augusta madness. Now, you'll know the basics here without me even having to school you up. Just tell me who won in 2016.
Well, it was an interesting win. It was Danny Willett out of nowhere, a player that wasn't even meant to be at Augusta that week. His wife was going into labor and went early, wasn't meant to be there. So, she ended up going 2 weeks early or whatever it was, and he ended up winning the Masters 2 weeks later.
I only asked you for the winner, and you've already told me the entire backstory. You've ruined half of my little yarns here. No, you're absolutely spot on. But who was the actual story of the 2016 Masters?
Well, that was Jordan Spieth, but I won't ruin your fun. I reckon I'll let you have the Jordan Spieth story. But I believe it was right amidst the Jordan Spieth fandom where he was winning everything, draining every putt in sight, and it didn't look like Jordan Spieth was ever going to lose that Masters.
Well, as we've touched on it, Asterisk Tally racked up a 7 on the 12th hole, which is eerily similar to everything that happened 10 years ago on Wednesday, it will be, Soph. Jordan Spieth, he's the defending champion. He's 22. He's the game's golden-haired boy. Tiger, by this stage, had his issues and his challenges. Phil Mickelson has had his issues. DJ is emerging as the next big thing, but had issues of his own. And so I think we were looking for who was the one that we could all love, who was the guy that we could embrace as a golfing community that was free of extramarital affairs or, all sorts of weird and wonderful things going on with gambling or with illicit drugs. And Spieth was emerging as that guy. He won the 2015 Masters. He had the 36 and the 54-hole scoring record. He leveled Tiger in 97 at 18 under for the scoring record for the tournament. That was the same year he won the US Open, was second in the PGA Championship to Jason Day, and was in a tie for fourth at St Andrews in the Open Championship. So he's top 5 in every major that year. I think it was the first time in history. So he's the new guy. His run to the 2015 Masters in his own right was really wild. He won the 2014 Australian Open back in Royal Sydney. Now, isn't that a blast from the past? We've got a completely new Royal Sydney now, which I imagine you'll get an opportunity to see before too much longer. He won the Hero, he won the Valspar, and he lost the Houston Open in a playoff. So this kid's 21, and he's absolutely killing it throughout the entirety of 2015. So 2016, he's chasing back-to-back Masters. Soph, there's only 3 of them who've won the Masters back-to-back in history. See if you can get 1 or 2 of them right. Have a crack. They are the biggest names in golf, essentially.
Oofed. Well, I'm going to have to go Tiger Woods.
Tiger Woods is 1.
Jack Nicklaus?
Jack Nicklaus is 2. The other one is slightly more obscure, but not that much. Won it 3 times, including 2 in a row, 88, 89.
Freddie Couples?
No, Freddie Couples won 1 in 91, I reckon it was. Okay. But this is Nick Faldo who won
of course.
3. And so they're the only 3 who've won back-to-back. So Jordan Spieth at 22 years of age is chasing history of being only the 4th person to win the Masters back-to-back and join that sort of company, Jack, Tiger, and Sir Nick Faldo. So, it's like he's built in a lab, this guy. He's tidy, he's unflappable, he's well-spoken. He just is the prototype Masters winner. Now, He begins Sunday with a 1-stroke lead. He finished the night before bogey, double bogey. So his lead went from 4 back to 1. It was a bit of a wobbly finish. But so he had gone wire to wire in 2015, and here he had led the first 3 rounds of the 2016 tournament. He'd gone 7 rounds straight leading the tournament. That was a Masters record. So he begins day 4 at 3 under. Now, 3 under sounds like a pretty ordinary score, but I don't know if you can recall this. Days 2 and 3 were horrendous days of weather. They had howling winds. It was freezing cold. It was really unpleasant to play golf. So everyone had struggled. And so the bogey, double bogey finish didn't look all that out of place because everyone was racking up enormous numbers. There was only 4 players under par going into the final round. So he begins the final round. He's 3 under. He birdies 2, as most people do, the par 5, and he bogeys 5, the tough par 4. No problem. Kind of normal. Do you know what happens next?
I do, but I would love for you to tell us.
Well, he goes on the most remarkable birdie run. He birdies 6, the tough par 3. He birdies 7, the narrow par 4. He birdies 8, the uphill par 5. And then he birdies 9, that sort of dog leg right to left par 4, hits it to 4 feet underneath the hole and makes the putt. And he walks off the 9th green with a 5-stroke lead, having birdied 4 straight. And so 5 clear, back 9 still to come. And we're not even bothering with the leaderboard anymore. We're just starting to work out, is it time to engrave the trophy? Should we steam clean the green jacket that we would have been wearing all the way through last year? Because it's done, isn't it? It's all over.
Well, not at the Masters it ain't. Not at Augusta, It definitely isn't.
Not at the Masters it ain't. But let's just go through who he's playing alongside. Smiley Kaufman's gone 3 over through 9. Hideki Matsuyama's gone 3 over through 9. Bernard Langer, who was 58 years of age and in the second last group, was trying to break the old man age of winning the tournament by 12 because Jack was the previous oldest winner at 46. He was at 4 over through 9. Jason Day is at even. Now, there's only one bloke who's making any sort of ground, and even then he's not really making ground. He's just lurking. He's just staying roughly in the contest. So I mean lurking in the most polite, unassuming possible way. And that is, of course,
Danny Willett in one of the most outrageous Masters outfits I've ever seen. And I vividly still remember the all white and then just a stark green shirt. I can't erase it.
We are coming back to the outfit, don't worry. But I'm glad you have referenced it. That just shows how much you are across all of this stuff. Now, Danny Willett, I think in the US was probably seen as a bit of an unknown, and that's not quite right. He was a DP World Tour player, so a little bit out of sight, out of mind. And his big wins had sort of come out of season, but he was 12th in the world at the time, and he'd come second in the race to Dubai the previous year. But the sort of tournaments he'd won the Nedbank Challenge in South Africa in December of 2014. It was December of 2014. He'd won in 2015. He'd won the European Masters, and in 2016 he'd won the Dubai Desert Classic. So that's a January tournament in Asia. These aren't necessarily the events that the Americans are paying a heck of a lot of attention to, if you like. So he gets into the Masters because he's 12th in the world, so he's well inside the top 50 for the invite. But you've already referenced the story. Tell us again. He was the last person to enter the tournament. Tell us why.
So his wife, from memory, was meant to give birth on the week of the Masters, and he announced to the world, nope, I'm going to be there for the birth of my first child. That's where I want to be. And she came early. She came a few weeks early, which meant that he could accept the Masters invite, and he was the last person to accept that invite and step onto those grounds, probably with 0 sleep, a newborn baby, but very, very happy with no expectations.
Last one to enter, last one to arrive. He was there late on Monday night, so he played a practice round. I think he played 9 holes Tuesday and 9 holes Wednesday. He'd been to the Masters before. He was T34 the year before, where he got in as a top 50 player on the basis of winning that Nedbank that I was telling you about. He wasn't, like I said, he wasn't a complete unknown. Second of the race to Dubai, played that Masters. I was talking about Jordan Spieth was T4 in the 2015 Masters at 2015 Open Championship at St Andrews, which was won by Zach Johnson in a playoff. And Spieth was T4 there. Well, Willett was T6 at that event. So he was on the world stage, even if most people sort of see him as a bit of an unknown, if you know him. So, yeah, so let's go back to Spieth. He's cruising. He gets off the 9th green, walks to the 10th tee. He's 5 strokes up. He makes a bogey on 10, sort of hit it in the bunker on approach, hit a poor bunker shot out, had a 40-footer for par, missed it, made the putt for bogey. No drama. You can bogey 10 and it's not disastrous. On 11, he makes a bogey as well. Now, this is kind of important because all of the talk in the lead up to the Masters was that Jordan Spieth had an issue with driver where he was blocking it 100 miles right. He'd won one tournament for the year in 2016, and that was the Century, the Tournament of Champions, where they play at Hawaii. And all of the fairways there are 100 meters wide. So it didn't matter where you were driving it, you could get away with it. But a lot of other places he was starting to get found out. So on 11, he blocks a drive 100 miles right. And you can see his shoulders sort of slump as if to say, oh, I did not need that bad swing to come in at this possible time. Now he chips it out back into the fairway, hits this outrageous approach to 6 feet, but misses the putt for par. And you can just feel it tighten on him a little bit. The interesting thing about 11, Soph, is that there is an enormous scoreboard right in front of where you are putting on 11. And there are some varying suggestions as to when that leaderboard updated, because we're talking about he's lost 1 stroke on 10, 1 stroke on 11. But while that was playing out, Willett has birdied 13 and birdied 14. So the lead that was 5 had actually already come back to 1. Now, I'm pretty certain that when Spieth was putting for par on 11, he didn't know what the leaderboard said. But I'm almost certain that that leaderboard had upgraded as he made his way to the 12th tee, and he must have seen and known what was going on when he was playing the 12th hole. Soph, come back into the conversation here, mate. What happened on the 12th tee?
Well, I think the only way to explain it is his absolute chances at the win of a Masters was completely drowned off the tee as that ball went flying into the water.
He hit maybe one of the worst tee shots I've seen on that hole. This is 12. It's called Golden Bell. It's 155 yards. As I said, the lead is back to 1. The pin's over on the far right. Everyone says you play over the bunkers, you play safe, you've got a little bit of wiggle room, you play about 20, 30 feet left. You even hear him in the broadcast talking to his caddy, Mike Grella, and they say 20 feet left. But something flicks in his brain as he's over the ball because he goes straight for the flag. And he hits this blocky right cut that misses, that was supposed to be at the start 20 feet left, and he hits it 20 feet right. You know that the way that hole is so beautifully offset. And so once you're 20 feet right, even if you had the right club, it was always going to come up a club and a half short, and it trickles back down into the water. Not fatal, bit of a disaster, but not fatal. Soph, tell us what happens next.
Well, he takes his drop from the opposite side, and to be fair, it's a very, very hard chip. It is not an easy chip. That green is way elevated, more than what you can tell on the coverage and on TV coverage. And he goes straight back into the water.
Yeah, it's exactly what happens. Interestingly enough, Soph, 2 years ago in 2014, this is the year that Bubba won, and Jordan Spieth hit it in the water there as well. Almost the identical shot. Went for the flag. He was trying to make up Bubba's lead, so I can understand why he was being a bit more aggressive there. But he took on exactly the same shot. In 2015, when he won it, he played that hole in 2 under. Just did not make a mistake there. In 2016, it was almost like he'd forgotten the demons of 2014 and how that really set him back. And he went for it the first time. He set up the same drop, and he actually got up and down in 2014, made 4, so it wasn't a disaster. But the next one was such a bad shot. It was as fat as anything I've seen for a professional golfer. It only just got into the water. It nearly bounced short of the water. That's how poor it was. And then, of course, his 5th stroke flew the green and ended up in the back bunker.
Yep, exactly right. And it's looking pretty similar to something Tally was doing.
It's looking pretty grim. He did play a wonderful bunker shot out, left it to 4 feet, made the putt, but he walks off with a 7. So he has started that hole, he started the back nine 5 strokes up. All of a sudden, he is now 3 strokes back. I mean, you would not believe it. He walked off and he turned around to Mike Greller, his caddy, and said, what just happened there? And, hoping a little bit of positive encouragement from Mike would be on his way back. Mike just said, you hit it in the water twice. So nothing like a bit of a clip from your caddy as you're going through. Right. So the one thing I love, I've been watching the coverage over the last couple of hours. Ian Baker Finch then starts talking about, he's talking to Nick Faldo and he says, Nick, did you ever practice any strokes from the drop zone on the 12th? Of which Faldo says, no, never practiced. Yeah, well, I don't reckon that's great preparation. I really think you should be going over and practicing a few from the drop zone. So you can see how much calamity was going on that we're starting to talk about that. So he walks off with the 7 on the par 3. It's not completely dead just yet, but it's certainly completely flipped the tournament. Willett, meanwhile, is not doing anything all that special. He makes a par on 15 while playing partner Lee Westwood chips in for eagle, outrageous eagle chip, and that gets him into second place. DJ plays this amazing shot through the trees on 15 to set up an eagle putt of his own. Jordan is now playing 13. He hits a beautiful drive. His approach into 13, the par 5 from 189 yards, goes over the back and he slumps like he just knows that this is all over for him. Still plays a wonderful chip, gets it up and down, but I reckon that is the point that he knows he's probably done. Willett's on 16. He has 8 feet for birdie and he drains it. And this is hilarious. He gets a fist bump from Lee Westwood's caddy. I go, what's going on? Lee Westwood's actually in this tournament here. He's in a tie for second place. He can win it. And his caddy's fist pumping the leader while Westwood's still trying to make a par putt. I mean, seriously, what is going on? Westwood, of course, hits one of those trademark choky 4-foot par putts that he notoriously misses, and he misses this one, and that puts him 3 back. So Willett walks off 16 green, heads for 17 tee. He's 3 up with 2 to play. This is a beauty, Soph. His coach back in England is watching the final round, but he's watching it on mute. He can't bring himself to listen to the broadcast coverage. So he watches it on mute and trying to piece the whole thing together from facial expressions and graphics and scoreboards. And probably the way this tournament was going, that was the healthiest way to consume all of the chaos. Willett gets to 18. He's shot 67, makes a wonderful up and down with a chip on 17, gets a bit of a lucky kick on approach on 18, and then makes a pretty safe little lag putt and knocks it in. The bizarro moment, and you were just talking about it, he wore this sort of dreadful all-white outfit, whether it was a bit of a reflection of, his English heritage or whatever it was, but he had white pants, white jacket. He's left a 1-foot putt for par, and for whatever reason, the first stroke of the day, off comes the jacket, and he's there playing the final 1-foot putt in this bright green. It wasn't really a Masters green. They were sort of calling it Masters green, but it was more a lime green. It was a pretty ugly looking color of green, and he makes the putt for his 67 in this terrible green polo with the jacket off. So yeah, there he was. He'd started at even par. He posted 5 under 67 and just waited for the rest of the field to completely obliterate themselves around them, which is exactly what he did. He became the first English winner since Nick Faldo, the name that we were just talking about. And that sneaks up on you because the entire broadcast is still trying to consume what's going on with Spieth. There's 40 minutes to play. Now, he makes birdie on 13, as I said, birdie on 15, but then he makes a pretty ugly little bogey on 17. And that is the end of the tournament because he needs to make a hole-in-one on the final hole for him to be able to make up the 3-stroke deficit. And I remember Willett's caddy wanting to jump all over him on one of the Chesterfield lounges while he was sitting inside one of the cabins waiting for it all to play out. But to Spieth's credit, and this is really important, he did front up afterwards. He gave an interview and he did say, look, I did try to go for it on 12 rather than play to the bunkers. That was my fault. I should have known that once I'd played the front 9 as well as I did, I could have got away with playing the back 9 and even par, and I'd probably go on and win the tournament. But I just got caught up in myself after those 2 bogeys. I went for too much. And it was a mistake that I'd been making a little bit with those par 3s, hitting it short right, and you couldn't afford to hit it short right there. So there you go, Soph. One of the most, crazy Masters afternoons that I can remember. I know you watched it, and I certainly did as well. Couple of little odds and ends. There were 3 aces on 16 that day alone. Can you recall any of those? I'm asking a lot because they were a fair bit earlier in the day.
No, I'll be honest, I cannot recall any of them.
So one to Shane Lowry, one to Davis Love, and the third one was to Louis Oosthuizen, whose ball went in after it bounced off JB Holmes's ball on the way through. One other thing that was really beautiful, Jonathan Smart, who was Danny Willett's caddy, he wore bib number 89. So you know how they wear the big white overalls. His was number 89. Would you believe Jackie Nicklaus wore number 89 for his dad, Jack, when he won it in 1986, exactly 30 years prior, as the last guy into the tournament as well. And then there was another little lovely little link. So Nick Faldo won in 1989, and his son had been born 3 weeks before he won the Masters in 1989 as well. Remember who the Low-Am was that year?
No, not at all.
Fairly big name on the live circuit with a flat cap that he was wearing at the time.
Bryson DeChambeau, that's
Bryson
who it was.
DeChambeau, exactly right. So, well done. And then, here they were, these two guys, Spieth and Willett, 10 years ago, vying for the biggest tournament. We've got one guy who won it running away and another guy who we expected to win it and didn't. Well, Danny Willett, I just had a look. He's currently ranked 393 in the world, and Jordan Spieth is ranked 63 in the world, and I would argue probably lucky to be 63 because he gets a lot of sponsors exemptions into those big point USPGA Tour tournaments. So that is the story of 2016, Soph. I was drawn to it by Asterisk Tally making 7 on 12, Jordan Spieth making 7 on 12. And I would probably argue, Soph, and you might have a similar or different opinion, but Jordan, now he went on and won the Open Championship in 2017, but I don't really think he has ever been the same player since the disaster of the 12th hole 2016 Masters.
I tend to agree. He's one of those people that you're always hoping that he's going to be in contention, but never is. His short game, I think, is what's never recovered. He used to hole 30-footers 24/7. He'd make up and down from anywhere. Like you said, some of the up and downs he was making in those last few holes, like the one on 13 from off the back of the green, is so slippery, and he made it look easy. And to be fair, even his up and down for 7 on the 12th hole was not an easy up and down. So his short game was unbelievable still then, but I think it's forever looked a bit shaky, and he's forever still been fighting that driver, and he doesn't hit it as long as a lot of the others. And I think he's often just playing catch up, and his short game's not keeping up with him at the moment. But he's always an interesting one to watch at the Masters because sometimes you never know what could happen. He does know those greens really well, and that short game can turn up. You don't have to hit the ball particularly long around the Masters. So as long as he can get it off in play off the tee, I always think Jordan Spieth is a shout for a top 15, top 10 finish, potentially even one day another win.
Well, Soph, that is an absolute epic episode of the Masters. We'll be recording our episode relating to the preview of Pennant Golf, which of course resumes after the Easter break on Sunday. You've got a massive match coming up against Blackwood. So that's going to be a really important match for you. All of that comes up later in the week. Just before we wrap up, how do you watch the Masters? Because it's normally an early start. Do you get up out of bed or do you watch it on the phone? How do you do it?
I'm a bit of a mix of the two. I always watch the Masters on a Sunday. You have to get up in the morning and watch that final round. I used to always watch it with my dad, but it's probably the first year that I've moved out of home and I've got work on Monday, so I probably won't be watching it with dad. So that's a bit of a shame. I'm going to be a bit sad, but I'm sure I'll be texting him the whole way through. I've got friends coming on Friday, so we'll be watching it late into it. And I'm actually got a Masters themed dinner party, Hooky, which I might have to take some photos and post all over our social media. But I believe Thursday night will Friday morning for us, and Saturday morning will probably be me huddled over a phone in bed trying to not wake up Darcy. But normally I'm pretty poor at that. How about you?
The Masters themed dinner party. I'll just be going back through my emails as soon as this is over, because I'm sure there's an invite for Wallace and myself somewhere. I'll actually be at work, Soph. I'll be at work Sunday night, so into Monday morning. It'll just be the challenge of, do I stay at work and annoy everyone who's coming on shift, and just sit there watching the Masters, or do I just make the mad dash home? I'll make that decision as it happens. It'll depend on how close and how tight it is. I suspect I'll stay there and watch, but it's not a bad way to do it, being paid and keeping one eye on the TV at the same time.
No, it's not a terrible option. Well, Hooky, I look forward to speaking to you later on the week about pennant golf, but otherwise, happy Masters viewing, and I can't wait to wrap it up early next week.
Yeah, I look forward to that dinner invite, which I'm sure is on the way. Good on you, mate. Have a great week.
You too. Bye.
With the last putt sunk, that's a wrap on this golf edition of Hooked on Sport. Thanks for listening. Help us meet more golfers just like you by following us and leaving a review. We look forward to your company on the next golf edition of Hooked on Sport.
I'm going Royal, but I'm going 4-3. I think this is going to be a particularly close game.
Fair enough, Soph. I'm probably thinking the other way. Frank Vukic will be back for Kooyonga. Billy White, I presume, will miss with Junior Interstate Series. A little bit too much quality in the Kooyonga lineup for me, so I'm going to go Kooyonga. I'll say 4.5, 2.5. And that will leave Royal Adelaide on a real knife edge as they chase a semi-finals berth the week after. So, great wrap. Oh, gee, it's so much fun. I love just pouring through all of these matches with you and just trying to predict what's going to happen. It's the Simpson Cup that gets underway, I reckon, from around about 7:30 in the morning. The Sanderson Cup follows. It's all at the Grange. If you love your golf, get out and watch the stars of South Australian golf play. The men, the women, one of them is my co-host, Sophie Hilditch. Soph, always great to lock horns with you on this sort of stuff, mate. Good luck on Sunday. We'll debrief on Monday night.
Thank you, Ben. Always a pleasure. And look, I don't have to send you a text message after my Sunday when I get my win and let you know, this is a bit disappointing, actually. I don't get to rub it in your face.
We'll be on the same side for once.
All right, Hooky, have a good night, and I'll see you shortly.
Good luck, mate. Go well.
Beautiful.
All right, guys, I'm off to bed. I'm exhausted.
Same.
I'll stop that one.
So Ben, I've got this.